Hello and good morning. Happy New Year to everybody. Sorry for the delay in my blog series. I got distracted quite heavily at the end of last year. Lots going on here. I'm wearing several hats and it keeps me really busy. But nevertheless, I thought about you all and I just dropped a couple of short messages just to let you know I haven't forgotten you. But hey, carrying on into this year, I wanted to just say a few things. I've got a lead into this blog. The lead in is the marketing I'm going to be doing for my sequel book. And I thought in order to market my sequel book, I needed to remind people and to refresh people that haven't read it that there's a first book, and The African Sunsets, The Settlers Story is obviously the first book. But as we go into the end of the first book, it suddenly cuts out, as you well know, and we are now going into the second book, and it's called Savage Encounters, African Sunsets, Savage Encounters. There's a reason for the name. I think you'll find in the second book things get tough, really tough. So, and truthfully, that's exactly what did happen in those times. And I was trying to bring into the book a drama, a excitement, and maybe a little historic narrative as to what transpired in those days, to give the reader a feel for what the people had to experience and what their life was like going through that period. So if it seems a little violent in places, it really was violent. But I've kind of included it but minimized it, if you follow what I'm saying. So I want you to enjoy the book without being grossed out with terrible things. But in order to make the book effective, I think it's important to have a story that has some kind of meaning to it. So it's not out yet. I'm on chapter 9. I've got about the same number of chapters as the first book. So I've got about, 12, 15 more chapters to do. And that won't take long, but the problem is I get distracted with my other life. I am involved heavily in doing valuations on real estate properties for big banks, and I also kept pretty heavily involved in other aspects of my life here. So forgive me if there are delays between messages, but I do want to keep you all involved. So look out for it. It's coming. Oh, by the way, I'm so excited about the cover of the new book. When you saw the lead in, I've had that fella on my Facebook page for months because I absolutely love that picture. It's probably the most beautiful picture of a leopard I've ever seen in my life. And he just looks at you with his deep eyes and thinking, boy, I could just make a feast out of you. But it's a beautiful picture. And I couldn't resist it because I think anybody who sees the book will love it too. So forgive me for my indulgence there, but I think it's very appropriate for the second book. The leopards are ruthlessly vicious, but they're also the most beautiful creatures, and they got so many good things. Taking you further, in my website, africansunsets.org, on the last page of my website, I put a lot of charities that I get behind or support, and they're not necessarily pushing anybody to do anything. It's a reminder. Africa is a continent that has been sort of missed out in a way, and I think it shows its anger by some of the political uprising and the suffering of the people. But without getting political, I wanted to just say that it hasn't really got in line with the rest of the world in terms of the locations, the people, the towns and the roads and everything. It's just kind of left behind to some degree. And Along with that comes neglect, and the neglect are the African kids, well, the Africans themselves, in different areas. The animals are absolutely massacred by poachers, and for every one of you that is living your life now in comparative luxury, think about it. Elephants are going out faster than we can even save them, and to be honest with you, in our lifetime, it's a very strong possibility we won't even have animals like elephants on our planet. The human being is the most unbelievably greedy. God, I'm scratching for words because the human is so bad. Um, we hear it every day in the wars that are going on, but you know what? The animals are not devoid of that terrible treatment. They shoot these beautiful creatures, and they call it sport. I just can't go there. When I was a kid years ago, my buddies, my parents' friends' kids were buddies of mine in Kenya, and they were given air rifles to play with to keep. I mean, and so they would shoot air rifles and so on. And their big sport was to try and shoot birds out of trees and things like that. And being a young kid, I was very impressionable, and I thought, oh, I'm not sure I like them killing these birds and things. And even in those days, I kind of drew somewhat of a conclusion that it was not right. Well, I went further with that and asked my dad for an air rifle, but I didn't want it to shoot animals. I just wanted to target practice and so on. But the day came, I got an air rifle for Christmas, and I think I was probably about, I'm going to guess at about 6 years old, maybe 7. And we used to live close to the bush. And so when they gave me the air rifle, I decided I was going to practice with it, and so I used to shoot targets and things like that. Well, we moved to England, and when we went to England, I took it with me, and I always remember it was in the trunk that was shipped back to England for us to live there, and I unpacked it one day and got the pellets that I'd packed with it, and decided to go out into local fields. So I went out into the English countryside, and I was climbing big old stone walls, hundreds of years old, and I went out into the backwoods where there were little trees and things like it, and little mini um, clumps of trees, with the aim of maybe shooting something. And this was as a young kid. And I decided maybe I'll shoot a rabbit. So I took the gun and I went into the woods, and I was looking around, and I found a couple of rabbits running around in the undergrowth there. And I decided to see how good the gun was at shooting one. So I shot a rabbit, and he didn't die. And God absolutely taught me the lesson of my life that day, because this little fella was doing somersaults, and I was heartbroken after I'd done it. I thought, oh no, I should never have done that. And I ran over to him, and I couldn't do anything for him. He was shot behind the ear, and he was just in agony. So I had no choice but to kill him. And I killed him with my bare hands, held his legs, and gave him a rabbit shot. And you know what? I'll tell every one of you from sitting here today watching, that was the most traumatic experience I had in my childhood with anything like that. I felt terrible. I took the rabbit home, and my mother was very practical. She said, okay, we're going to eat him. If you kill him, you've got to eat him. And she made a rabbit stew, and we had rabbit stew, and I hardly could eat it. But my whole life now, ever since, I have never killed another animal, not one animal, with a gun, anything. I've never shot or killed an animal. And I am a great believer in saving animals. I do not believe in any way, shape, or form that it's right. And so I stand against all of that. And any of you out there that like to go hunting and so on, I'll say to you, think twice before you do it. When you go elk hunting or you go whatever, those creatures have feeling. They can feel pain. They can feel the bullet go in, and they can feel all the terrible things that go with shooting one. And I'll say, don't do it. And if you don't kill it when you shoot it and it runs off, heaven forbid, that poor thing's running around with a bullet in it. And just don't. It's a terrible, terrible thing to do. And I know people think it's great sport and you can eat the meat and so on, but I think we're quite affluent enough to survive without doing that in the name of sport. It isn't sport. It's killing, and it's killing is killing, and it's murder, no matter what way you look at it. Anyway, a bit of politics there, but I want to say to you all, on the back page of my website, that's why that's there. I'm pushing people to think about what's going on in the world. Take any animal charity that you like and support it in some little or big way, whether it be the dog pound, cats, could be animals overseas, it could be, let's go a bit further, more important still, it could be kids, starving kids in Africa. You know, also when I was a kid, there are things I learned very early age, but my parents used to go to work, and there were days when I used to go with them because I was on school vacation or whatever. And on the way to work, we'd have to cross a ferry when we lived in Mombasa. Then we'd have to cross this ferry and go over from the place called Likoni, which was the mainland, across on a ferry over to Mombasa, the island, and then to my parents' place of work. Well, going back and forth, you obviously go through different areas of town. Some of them are very poor areas of town, and I always remember kids, little African kids, climbing into the trash bins to get a meal. They were climbing in there to find some residue of food because they were starving. And I even as a kid, I used to say to my mum, what are they doing? And she'd say, well, this is what happens when you're starving. You don't have enough food. Well, obviously there were more of them than anybody could possibly help as a little individual group. But the truth is that this is a worldwide problem. Starvation in the world is in your home backyard. It's in foreign countries, and in particular, it's very heavily showing its face in Africa. And I want you to look at that. Just think, this is 2024. This is not medieval times. This is high tech, high money. And I look at all these people driving Teslas and God knows what else. They've spent thousands and thousands of dollars on them. And yet I'll bet you they don't take $10 out of their pocket and send it to a charity to help someone. And that is BS. You can put a few bucks to one side and help a charity. That I'm talking about serious charities, not people who rip you off, that will help these things. And just choose one. Anything. Whatever you do, one thing is better than doing nothing. Anyway, enough of my soapbox preaching. I just get out of bed on a new year. I've done it many years, and I think to myself, what am I going to do this year that is important? What am I going to do that is, I won't say different to what I do, okay? So in other words, am I going to pick up on some kind of something that's really important and try to help? I remember years ago, I'm not going to go any further because I think we're at way long enough of my chewing out, but I'll tell you a story sometime. Anyway, guys, think about your New Year's resolutions. Make it important. It doesn't have to be huge money. It just has to be significant. And if you make a significant statement to the world, then you are doing your bit. God bless you all. Have a great year and make it very, very successful so you too can be a supporter of the cause. Talk to you later. Bye-bye.